Hello, and welcome to Cognitive Approach 9 Lesson Starter from Psychology Sorted. In this one, we look at the influence of technologies on one or more cognitive processes, but this time we're actually looking at the positive influence, whereas last time we looked at a somewhat negative influence. This activity is into cognitive offloading, which is the action of taking trivial facts and information and storing them either in a notebook or, as we're looking at digital technology, storing them on your phone. So you will need a phone to do this activity. This is not a new idea, as you can see, but let's see if cognitive offloading can have any beneficial effects. So first of all, you need to split the class into two groups. Group 1, please put your phones on silent and put them away. Group 2, have your phones at the ready. You're going to need them because both groups look at this string of letters and you have 15 seconds to remember them, Group 1. And Group 2, you can put them in your phone and store them somewhere that you know where to retrieve them. You will be asked what they are after your next activity, which is another short test. So make sure you can see the screen or whiteboard and that you have a pen and paper ready. Are you ready? This is just a 1-minute test, a logic test. You've got to complete these 5 questions, answer valid or invalid, and here they come. 1 minute starts now. Your teacher will need to stop the slideshow at this particular point, pause the film, and after a minute we will give you the answers. And here come the answers. How did you do? The first one was valid, and the second one was invalid. Now these two were quite easy. The first one followed logically from the premise, and the second one clearly didn't. The third one's a little bit harder. Remember, the answer doesn't have to be true. It just has to follow logically. The fourth one is invalid. Some mammals have tails. Mice are mammals, therefore all mice have tails. If you're not sure about this answer, just try substituting humans for mice and you'll see that there is actually an invalid conclusion from the premise. And finally, the last one. Now there may be crime where there's poverty and poverty where there's crime, but that does not mean that there is only crime where there is poverty. Therefore, the conclusion does not follow logically from the premise. Add up your score and let's see how you did. Now add up your marks and get the mean of the results for each group. Which group would you have expected to do better on the logic test? Well, we hope that members of Group 2 did better than Group 1 on average because they aren't still trying to remember the series of letters from earlier, and so their cognitive processes are not suffering from overload. This is what we hope happened anyway. It may not have done, of course. And finally, you have to remember the letters. Members of both groups should individually try to remember the series of letters, write them down in any order, and Group 2 should not use their phones for this. Once you've done that, then Group 2, you may use your phones to write them down again. Don't change your original answer though. You're going to compare the two answers. But first, let's see how you did. Here are the answers. So both Group 1 and Group 2 mark all of your answers. Now, under condition A, which group remembered most of the letters better? We would have expected Group 1 to, because they've been trying to. For the last few minutes, they've been trying to remember these letters. So we would have expected Group 1 to have had more success than Group 2, who didn't need to bother to try to remember them. And were all Group 2 answers accurate under condition B? And what have you learnt from this experiment into cognitive offloading? And if the experiment didn't quite work how you expected, why might that have been? Remember, it's an independent samples experiment, so think about possible differences between the groups or other confounding variables. This experiment was designed by us based on studies into transactive memory and cognitive offloading. Another study you might be very interested in is one by Blacker et al. In 2014 that looked at the effect of action video games like Call of Duty on visual working memory. Unfortunately, we couldn't do that experiment as a quick 10 minutes at the beginning. And finally, here are the questions that this can help you with. Can help you with discuss the positive and or negative influence of technologies on one or more cognitive processes, being memory, of course. It can help you discuss the positive effects of technologies on memory. It can't help you really with the negative effects. If you get a question purely on the negative effects, you should use material from our last film. And here are our references, coming in reverse order. These are the ones we used to help us design this experiment. And if you want to have a look at Sparrow and a good summary of the Sparrow et al. Study on the Google effects on memory, we have it in our book, Psychology Sorted. And if you liked this video, you're sure to like our blog or either of our books, where you will find a summary of many of the studies that we have used. Thank you. Goodbye. Beginning of a class.